Good morning, Coffee Chat friend. Steve here again with a few words on something I ran across in the last probably 6 months, really. I think it was my brother sent me one of these sales pitch type emails one time as something I'd be interested in. I never actually bought the sales pitch, but within those emails, every time there's some really interesting little articles, a few of them. And there's this one guy in there, his name is Paul Rosenberg. He writes a lot about the concept of freedom and society and history of society and this sort of thing. I really like his stuff. You can YouTube him if you want, or Google search him. In fact, I just was watching a little clip on a video, and he was talking about the origins of the way things are in terms of the history of Egypt and the history of Greece and the differences and how it relates to our culture today. And I love that stuff because it really tells us a lot about how it is that we interact in the way that we do, how the basis of religion, government, and those sorts of things, we can learn a lot by looking back like that. But that's a little bit of a side point I just wanted to put out there because I really enjoyed some of the stuff that he's got, as little as I have read, so that's the disclaimer. Now, one of the things that I got the other day, which was the impetus for me to talk about this today, was he mentioned a book. It's a book by Dale Carnegie, which I actually have read once that I can remember. I think it was not more than a year ago. I may have read it a while before too. And that book is called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And here's what he said in the opening of his article. Dear reader, I never could get into Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I tried, and I did find some nice passages in it. But the idea of scheming to get friends and working to influence people felt entirely unnatural to me, kind of dishonest too. Now, I have to be honest with you, when I read the book, I didn't get that take on it, though that could certainly, the things that Dale Carnegie teaches in there could certainly be used to scheme and get people to do things they wouldn't otherwise do. After all, this book is normally sort of a bedrock book for salespeople. And once again, nothing against salespeople, but the tendency is if somebody doesn't want to buy something, if you can somehow influence them to buy, then that will affect your bank balance, right? So, but once again, too, I mean, a lot of those things could be used for good as well, I suppose. Now, when I was thinking about that, I was out walking yesterday, I was thinking about it. How about, rather than how to win friends, how about how to be a friend? So imagine if somebody was to write a book called How to Be a Friend and Thus Influence People. Of course, the thus influence people would be an aside, because if you're going to be a friend, the thinking about influencing people is not an issue, because there's no hidden motive whatsoever. If I'm going to be a friend, or if you're going to be a friend, you're going to be a friend, because the nature of being a friend is that of non-coerciveness, right? So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. First of all, the word friend, as an example, we all know it and what it means in terms of the everyday conversation, what it means to be a friend, to have a friend, this sort of thing, right? But it's interesting when we look at the origin of the word and where it comes from. The origin of the word, believe it or not, is Indo-European, and it means to love in its origin, its etymology. To love. Isn't that interesting, eh? And it's also related to the word free, F-R-E-E. And if we think about it, when there's real love and there's real friendship, there is a freedom of relationship. There's not these inhibitions, right? If we look at the word influence, of course, in the normal, everyday use of the word, it means the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of something or someone. So, and the etymology of it means to flow. So if you imagine if somebody is flowing in a certain way, or something as a river is flowing in a certain way, if we were to influence it, we could build a canal over here, and then the river would go that way. So we would have an influence. It's like a flow, right? I think fluere is the root word of the Latin. It means to, so we would direct it over here. So in terms of influencing people, if people had a tendency to do this, or to have a certain character, and all of a sudden we change them to going over here, then we have influence. We've moved their flow of attention over to there. And the word win, in its typical sense, is to have an advantage. In some way, we won, right? We won a game. We played. We're the one on the advantage side. And in its origin, it means to subdue and take possession of. Well, now, so that doesn't sound like something we'd want to do to friends, right? To subdue them and take possession. So their interest, their flow, if they're wanting to go this way and we subdue them and get them to go this way, well, that wouldn't be something that we would do as a friend, I don't think. Now, there is the concept, and it's usually talked about, and it's very valid, I would say, this win-win concept, which, in other words, if, like a negotiation, if you have a pencil and I have $1, and we both agree, I want the pencil, you want the $1, and we exchange for that, that is a win-win. You've gained the pencil, I've gained the $1, or whatever, or vice versa. We both win. That's not always the case, though, right? Because a lot of times there's win-lose. Probably a good majority of the time that is the case as well. So, and anyway, even if we do strive for the win-win, we're still wanting something. That's the modus, or that's the mode, right? In terms of the sale. Like a lot of times in sales, they talk about how, make a friend first. Well, but the reason you're doing it is to make the sale. So it's not really a first. The first is to make the sale. That's the purpose of the friendship. So it's not a real friendship. It's a conditional. There's strings attached in behind, which are not always put forth. So I would say that if we were to write a book called How to Be a Friend, we wouldn't bother with the influence. The influence would be natural. And I would say that the influence would be natural because of not something I discovered, but along the lines of something I read in a book recently. It was called Real-Time Relationships by a guy called Stefan Molyneux, where he talks about how love, he uses this term, which is kind of interesting. He said that love is the involuntary response to virtue. So love is one of those things that nobody really can explain for sure. It's like a feeling of a connection, right? And if we are being a friend as best we can, without any attachments, without any hidden agendas, well, that's the nature of being a friend, actually. Then we have to be a friend, we have to be showing virtue. We have to be showing truth, honesty, goodwill, frankness. And when I say honesty, I mean honesty even if that is embarrassing or a little bit hard on somebody at times. At least we're being honest. We're not dancing around taboos. We are living our lives morally as best we can, according to sort of a purpose, and we're a good example. All those sorts of things, when we're basically good in the face of others, we have the potential of being a friend. And when somebody is attracted to that virtue, love is like involuntary. Because love is something like one of those qualities. Like we talk about improving the quality of our life experience. Quality are those experiences like happiness, bliss, and so on, which are the result of the way we live our lives, rather than something to be pursued. So happiness, and once again, they're involuntary. I mean, if we behave in a certain way and then all of a sudden we're happy, then we didn't really volunteer or set out to achieve that happiness. We just all of a sudden feel happiness. And it's the same with love. Love, it's involuntary because we have been living our lives in a certain way. We've been living our lives as though we are a friend of somebody. We care about that individual. And then we evoke this involuntary quality within them and within us. And to that respect, we become influencers of ourselves, for sure. Because those sort of things, to be a friend, has to be a decision. You know, to be friendly, to smile at somebody. It can be sometimes involuntary when you get into the habit of it. But to step out and make that effort is a conscious, can be like a conscious decision. And as a result, we influence in time the way we are, the direction we're going to go. And it evokes eventually, not in all, but in those who are receptive to it, it evokes this involuntary response to that virtue of being a good friend. And so that as a result, then, the true title of such a book would be How to Be a Friend and Thus Influence People. What do you think? Is that important? Is it important to embark on the whole friendship building activity in this 2015? I would say it is. I would say there's no greater value in our lives as individual than the experience of friendship with others. Is there? The qualities, if we think about it, the qualities of our life experience, qualities of happiness, qualities of bliss, joy, love, all of those are so enhanced with the experience of our feelings, emotions, thoughts, conversations, work efforts, and so on with others who are so like-minded. I think so. What do you think? My name is Steve. It's great chatting again. Talk again soon. Bye-bye for now.